Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Greetings.
Do you have an update for them?
Well, I do, but let's start with what matters more, which is today is the first day of one-on-one coaching enrollment.
That does probably matter more, at least to the people.
That supersedes my problems.
To the people
because
listening.
If I don't talk about it and then we don't get any new clients, then I'm gonna have more problems, and I don't need more problems right now.
Well, let's give the people the thing that is relevant to them first.
Yes.
So you've been hearing us the last couple of weeks let you know, give you the heads up. Hey, coaching enrollment is coming. We have limited availability. So if you are interested, kind of get your head around this idea ahead of time, read up on it a little bit, make sure it makes sense, and then be ready. Be ready to hit us up on the day of. Well, it is the day of.
Here we are.
So if now feels like a good time to do some coaching, figure out what's going on in your life, in your career, where you're going, work through the existential angst you might have been experiencing lately, hit us up.
Someone asked me, a new client asked me right before she decided to move ahead, she was like, do I need to be miserable in order to do this? I was like, no. But you definitely.
Good question.
But she was like, but I am confused. I'm not unhappy, but I'm also not, I think, where I could be. And I also don't know exactly where I'm going. I'm like, that sounds right to me. Yeah. You can be anywhere on the spectrum. Listen, if you're so depressed you can't get out of bed, you probably need to be in therapy. But if you're mostly functional, you're maybe somewhat miserable, at your work or in your life, and you're just like, I don't know what the hell I want, or you feel kind of numb, or you're like my new client who's like, I'm not unhappy, but I don't know where I'm going either. Any degree of uncertainty is totally fine. Also, don't be one of those people. Every year we get multiple people who are like, well, I can't do coaching yet because I haven't gotten all my ducks in a row and I haven't figured out what I'm going to talk to you about. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. You don't have to know jack. Just talk to me and we will figure it out. That's why Kristen and I have a process. That is what people appreciate probably most about working with us, other than our winning personalities, obviously, is the fact that you don't have to think. You get to show up and be like, all right, my intention is to get clear on who I am, what I want, and where I'm going. And you don't have to know what you're going to talk about that day, because we know in what order and in what way to expose you to homework and a process that's going to help you answer all of those questions at the right time without overwhelming yourself or overloading yourself with too much at any given point. Can you do that by yourself? No.
I get this question because there are certain experts that you would go to and you would want to have a clear sense of what you're asking for, what some of your direction is, so that they could help you get there.
Yeah.
The point of why people are coming to us is because they don't know what to do. They're feeling stuck. They're feeling confused. They don't know how to make sense of all of the things bouncing around in their brain. So if the point were for you to figure that out ahead of coaching, then what's we've missed the point here. So yeah, you don't have to figure anything out. We know how to help you get clear faster. It's what we do. It's what we're really good at, to toot our own horns, building clarity out of mental chaos or fog. So now if this is not the right timing because there's some other mitigating factor in your life, okay, well, there are times I've had some people say, hey, I want to talk to you, but I'm about to have a baby. Maybe I should, do that for a few months and get acclimated to having a newborn at home. And then we can talk. Okay, there might be situations like that where this isn't the right timing, in which case we do coaching enrollment 3 times a year, and we do have a wait list. So
just put yourself on the wait list.
Even if you know you want to do it, but you're just like, the next few months are going to be insane for me, it's not good timing, great, let us know. We'll check back in with you when we have availability closer to when you want. But this coaching enrollment period is really for people who they're ready now. They are ready they want to get started in the next month or so. They're ready to start making some changes and figuring some stuff out, even if they have no idea what that's going to look like. It's okay. We're going to help you figure that out.
Do I need to go through all the details? Probably not, because I think you're smart and I think you can read our site and you know that it's a 6-month process and that's 12 sessions. They don't always happen every week. They start out happening once a week. Eventually it tapers off because guess what? You don't need me to hold your hand anymore every single week.
And you're doing more in between and you want more time.
Yeah.
Toward
because
the end.
At some point it's going to go from being something that's very internal. Hey, let's release some blocks. Let's uproot some old beliefs. Let's get clear on, what you want. And then you're going to have to actually do some stuff. That's where the rubber meets the road. And you have to actually experiment and explore and maybe do some uncomfortable things, have some difficult conversations, step out of your comfort zone in some way. And then you're going to need more time to go by. So on average, it lasts about 6 months. Can last a little less for some people, sometimes more for other people. You would be unique. This is all stuff we can talk to you about because when you sign up for coaching, you're not saying 100% I want to do it. You're saying, I'm very serious about this and I want to talk to you to make sure it's a good fit. Great. We will talk to you about that because for sure, I would never work with someone who I hadn't talked to and who we hadn't made sure it's going to be a win-win all around.
And I want to just let you know as well, if you have one of those introductory conversations with us, you're pretty serious, you're really considering this, you want to chat about it, please don't worry that we're going to get weird and salesy and pressury of you. The last thing either Rachel or I wants to do is talk you into coaching with us because this is a 6-month average relationship. We want you to want to be there. We want to be there. We want to make sure it's a good fit. So this is really and truly, we just want to we want to set expectations for you, talk you through the process, make sure it feels good. And we're not going to be pushing you to sign up for this. No. So I do think sometimes people worry if I sign up, I'm going to get a super salesy approach.
God, no.
That does not work. It does not work in coaching, frankly.
I'm not interested in bamboozling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's just a waste of time. I want someone who wants to be there. I want you to want to be there as much as I want to date someone who wants to be there. Yes. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I'm not interested in being around anyone.
We're committing
who doesn't want to be there.
We're committing to hanging out for at least 6 months. So
and talking about some real shit.
Yes, getting into some serious stuff. So we're not going to try to force a fit. That's all I'm saying.
No. Okay, keep in mind that this is a 1.5 week enrollment period. Okay. And what's the last day? 29th or something like that? I don't know. Whatever's a 1.5 weeks from now. Just know that. And this is limited. Like, we only have a handful of spots because our schedules are just limited. So if you really want to do it, you got to be serious and you got to fill out that form and you got to talk to us. If you fill out a form and I can't talk to you right away or we can't talk to you right away, we'll let you know. Like, don't be afraid that you might have missed the window. You can't know unless you just ask.
And again, we do have a wait list. So if you've filled up, but you're still reaching out within the window, and we might just have to talk to you a little bit later. We will let you know. We'll be very transparent all along.
Always. And the point, like, if I had to sort of sum up, people ask me this often in those one-on-one conversations when we're first getting to know each other, like, what's the result of coaching going to be? It's always this. I want you to become the most clear, confident, grounded, directed version of yourself. Do you want that? Probably, because it means that regardless of what life throws at you, and it will throw some shit at you, you can handle it pretty well. And you can be clear at any given moment what feels like a fit and what you can say no to and how to respond. It's way more valuable than just getting the thing that you think you want at any given interval. Getting the right job isn't going to turn you into that person, but turning into that person can get you the right job or relationship or whatever it is you want. So that's what I'm interested in helping people do. And that's what we do.
And while I am skeptical of any coaches who give specific guarantees, you will get this, or you will make more money, or you whatever. I can't guarantee anything because I can't do the work for you. I can show up session after session and support you, but you have to actually go do the thing. But as long as you are participating and open to the coaching process, you can't help but come out the other side having much clearer sense of who you are and what you want and where you're going and why you're going there and how to overcome things that have felt really hard for you, because we're spending 6 months focusing in on those exact things. You can't walk away less aware and less clear.
Very hard to
I don't know how that would even work.
It's not possible.
So I can pretty much guarantee that as long as you are there and participating, then you're gonna get those results at a minimum. And often there's a lot of things that come along as a result of getting clearer on who you are and what you want that you don't even know you wanted. You don't even know to ask for at the beginning of coaching. So there's always some of those fun surprises too.
All right. Link in episode notes, or you can go to clarityonfire.com, go to the Work With Us tab. There's a one-on-one coaching page. There's a info on that page. There's also a link where you can sign up to chat with one of us and see if this is what you want to do. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Oh, God.
So before we get into our side chat topic,
barf, man. Oh, man.
She's been having a week.
Well, as soon as I got over this cold. Okay, so how do I make this short? Hurricane Ida blew through town, caused some torrential downpours in the DC area. That wouldn't be a problem if your condo association wasn't a POS that has a really bad drainage system that got clogged, and then the water had nowhere to go but flood into your condo and your neighbors all around you. So yeah, I woke up earlier this week. Well, as I'm recording, this is like 2 weeks ago as you're listening to this, but and I went to the bathroom and I stepped in water at 3:45 a.m. And it was like a horror scene because I thought it was coming from the toilet. And then I realized this is not coming from the bathroom. This is coming from under the floor. How's that happening? And then I realized, oh, it's in the hallway. It soaked my runner rug. Oh, it's in the kitchen. It's in the living room. It soaked my entire rug pad and wool rug. Like, we're talking
it's just
thick.
Everywhere.
There's everywhere.
Just water bubbling up from the floor.
Yeah. Like seeping up from hell.
You sent me pictures and I zoomed in, I could see water bubbles in between the floorboards.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, my condo kind of flooded. And that was like, yesterday, I guess. Yeah, it was technically yesterday because it was like the wee hours of Wednesday. And this is Thursday. So anyway, it's been a really weird 36 hours for me. And this is the 5th water-related incident I've had in my condo, all from different sources. This is the first from outside. It's always been from someone else's condo or from the AC in mine or, a pipe. But this time,
not to give away any identifying information about where you live, but we'll just say that this is such a chronic issue, apparently, so you found out, that the maintenance team has a kitschy little name for your community that is a reference to how much water leaks in.
Yeah.
So that was a fun thing for you to discover this week.
That's fun.
Oh, this is just, they joke about it because it's so common. You're like, that's not going to work anymore.
So I had to turn off for the hour that we're podcasting, and to turn off these 6 industrial fans and 2 giant dehumidifiers that are outside. My bedroom was the only room unaffected. So I've been living in my bedroom for the past 24 hours. I've eaten all my meals in here too. I had like, I've had,
Probably smart.
I had to, it's so loud out there. You can't do anything. And there's also like a wind tunnel out there. There's 6 fans. Anywhere you go, you're like getting Marilyn Monroe in your own house, you know?
Scarlett had to leave because she couldn't.
Scarlett's not here.
She couldn't handle all that.
She's with my parents. So, yeah. So anyway, it's nightmarish, and I'm going to have to, like, all the hardwoods in this place are going to have to go and then be replaced. And like the day that this happened, like the day before this happened on Tuesday, I was complaining about how overwhelmed I was. And now I'm laughing and I'm like, you sweet summer child.
To go back to just basic overwhelm.
Right. So anyway, it's important to talk about mental health, which is what I wanted to. I always
maybe now for you more than ever,
because I wanted to have this conversation before this happened, and now I'm like, well, it's important to have this conversation because life is going to throw you unexpected shit. I cannot tell you how much unexpected shit life has thrown at me this summer alone. Like in the last 2 months, I have had so many insane things happen. I don't even know if I mentioned on the podcast that my grandma passed away. I don't know if I've ever talked about it, but my grandma passed away 6 weeks ago. And that wasn't totally unexpected because she was 87 and she had been on the decline for some time, but just one of many things that have happened in the last 2 months that have been somewhat rattling to me, to say the least. And then this, like, the latest in a series.
It's been a summer for you, that's for sure.
But here's the thing. I'm not at this moment like deeply anxious or depressed, nor was I for any of the things that were happening. I mean, even with my grandma, obviously I grieved, even with some of the other things that happened that eventually you'll find out about in chapter 7 of Forever Alone. Even that didn't take me down for very long. And so I'm like, well, as you might have heard me mention, or you will hear me mention, at what point are we in Forever Alone? You haven't heard this yet. In chapter 6, I talk a little bit more about this. No, chapter 5. I don't know. I talk about how mental health and how you feel are 2 different things. And I want to get into that a little bit more because I used to think that it was one and the same. I used to think that if I looked outside of myself and I saw a reason to be sad or depressed, then that was it. That was how I felt, right? Like if I was single, so much of Forever Alone is me getting over this. If I'm single, I'm allowed to be sad about that. And so that's why I'm sad. And so I can't change the fact that I'm sad because this situation won't change. My feelings relied very, very much on what situation was happening outside of me. So if something like this happened, well, if I'm anxious because of course something chaotic and anxiety inducing is happening. And now I've gotten to the point where I've sort of divorced, not quite, but somewhat divorced what's happening outside from how I feel, which is kind of miraculous.
Well, and I'm thinking too, in terms of mental health and emotions, when you feel like your mental health is not as solid as you would want it to be, and you're struggling with anxiety, depression, any number of mental health challenges, then when you are going through normal emotions, it's normal to get overwhelmed when your house floods. It's normal to be sad when your grandma dies, right? To have normal emotions don't rock you to the core in the same way that they did when your mental health didn't feel solid enough to start with.
It doesn't make you like catatonic. it doesn't make you like, it doesn't
unable to
disrupt your whole
function.
life and completely turn you into a dysfunctional mess, which I've been multiple times, many times in my life.
So when you have a foundation of good mental health practices, then you can weather the ups and downs and still have the whole range of emotions, but it doesn't take you down.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So what I wanted was, I just felt like if you listen to this podcast regularly, it's kind of like reading a chef's cookbook and being like, cool, these are all great recipes. What do you eat every day though? Like, is this chef really cooking all of this for themselves every day? Probably not. This chef might be eating like overnight oats and like, but they've got like banana bread recipes and like French toast and eggs. They're not eating that. So it's like, what are you guys actually doing though? Like, how are you walking your talk? And what is it that you're actually doing in a day to tend to your mental health and your well-being? I would be interested in that if it was somebody else. So I figured, well, you guys might care to know. So I have a very short list that I curated in my head, which really isn't a curation. I feel like you would have had to write it down to deserve that word, but whatever. Of what I think has been most important for me, even just in the last year or a handful of years. And I think Kristen has probably done the same.
I have. Mine is written. I'm not sure it's comprehensive, but it's some of the important things.
Mine's not comprehensive either.
I'm sure I missed some things, but it's some of the things that first came to mind that I can feel the difference when I do and don't do them.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to start? We can go back and forth until we're out of items.
My first is probably the most direct, and I haven't shared this much on our podcast, although I have shared it much more in depth in our Patreon community. But one is I finally got some support and actually a diagnosis and treatment for where my chronic overwhelm was coming from. I think my sense of overwhelm is similar to your sense of chronic anxiety, depression, where I would always pin it to something external and say, of course I'm overwhelmed. I have so many things going on right now. Of course I'm overwhelmed because this week is just too jam-packed. Or I would be able to look at something outside and say that was why I'm overwhelmed. And eventually, after
you're always
33 years of being myself, I'm realizing it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. It just keeps, doesn't really matter how much is on my plate or what's going on. I just slip into overwhelm very easily. So turns out, just long story short, turns out this is partially because I was recently diagnosed as ADHD inattentive type, which is essentially the non-hyperactive type. If anything, I feel
it's
like
like
I'm the opposite
ADD,
of that.
basically.
Yeah, they just don't call it that anymore. But I'm actually getting correct treatment for that now, and it doesn't mean I still don't get overwhelmed. I was just telling you the other day, Rachel, feeling really overwhelmed again, but it's not so constant. I get serious breaks from it, which is wonderful. And now it's probably when a normal person would get overwhelmed versus my just constant low grade overwhelm. So realizing this was not just situational, and at some point I need to reach out and get some help for this and get some treatment for this, has been honestly game changer.
If you want to hear Kristen talk about that, we have 2 episodes that we did for our Patreon community, which our Patreon is linked in our episode notes, or you can go to clarityonfire.com/Patreon. I did an episode probably 6 months ago about my experiences with anxiety and depression. And then Kristen did one about her newfound realization about her having ADHD and then getting on meds, which you did. And so if you want to hear like the in-depth story around both of those things, join our Patreon and scroll back and listen to those bonus episodes.
And we'll be giving updates on that front too at some point moving forward.
Yeah. So, okay, back to me. What have I done? I feel like, again, we could have a whole episode about what you just said, but we already did.
We already did.
There's really no point in talking about it even more. Yeah. So, but there's a theme there of like, hey, are we blaming our situation on how we feel, or is how we feel potentially different than our situation?
And if it's chronic, can I be proactive about this instead of just feeling out of control about it all the time?
So very related to that, this is one of my big bullet points. This is like one of the things that changed in the last few years that has had a humongous impact on my overall mental health every day is I no longer reverse engineer reasons why I'm not happy or why I feel the way I feel. So what I used to do is I used to have a feeling, and because I have a lot of feelings, this would happen every day in some way or another. I'd wake up and I just feel sad. Often it was probably hormonal and I didn't even realize it, right? Like I was going through like just fluctuations. There's normal person fluctuations. And I would feel a feeling. I would feel sad or I'd feel angry. And then I would reverse engineer and go, why am I sad? Why am I angry? And I would find reasons and assign them to how I was feeling. So what that led to was that I was constantly questioning everything and looking for things in my life that explained how I felt, which is stupid because my feelings are just allowed to exist and shift with the winds because they do. They are very much like weather. But I would clutch onto them and go, oh, this must be, and this wasn't happening super consciously, but this must be because I'm fed up with coaching. And so then I would try to figure out a solution. Like, okay, do I need to like change the way we're doing coaching? Do I need to change what I'm offering? There was like, I was always trying to fix something.
Well, first you misdiagnose the problem.
Yes.
And then try to fix the problem that you diagnosed incorrectly.
Yes. So there was always something I was trying to solve. And so it would be like, I just want to quit everything. Like, and then I'd get dramatic because I would feel trapped because I felt like, oh my God, my job is making me feel like this, or it must be because I'm single that I feel like this. And here's the thing, your job is allowed to annoy you some days. Your singledom or whatever is allowed to make you sad some days. But sometimes you also are just allowed to have feelings and not assign any value to them, not label them in any way. And I have stopped doing that. If I am sad, I don't immediately go, it must be because of this. I don't immediately try to find an explanation for it. Because often it's just, I don't know, it's just how I feel today. And then I show up and I do my job. And here's how you know it's weather is when you wake up the next day and you're like, you don't feel like that day, but nothing has changed.
Yep.
Guess
or
it
sometimes
was just
you have a coaching call or you go do something. And at the end of that thing, you feel a little different.
Yeah. Right. If you're chronically feeling one way every single day, that's different. But I also just go through a lot of emotional fluctuations up and down every day. And I have completely, for the most part, stopped analyzing it. And it's freed up a lot of brain space, which in and of itself is good for your mental health. To not be using your brain that hard every day and like wearing yourself down and giving yourself mental fatigue, which then just leads to low grade like anxiety and depression in and of itself. Like when you're fatiguing yourself that hard, you're not going to feel great. But it's just, it's been great for my mental health. There's probably a couple episodes that I can link to that are relevant to what we're talking about. But there's one in particular. We had a burn this episode. We haven't done one of those in a long time. I think it was over a year ago. I'll link to it in the show notes, but about labeling emotions as good or bad that is related to this. So I will link to that. Okay. What's your next bullet point?
My next one. I have given myself permission to not do everything simultaneously. And
you mean like not overcommitting yourself?
Or when I do overcommit, to recognize some things need to be reshuffled. And I have done that multiple times just in this past year. Multiple things that I started and was gung-ho about. And then something else came up and I had to reprioritize. And it doesn't mean I didn't feel weird about it at all, but I think in the past I would have felt bad or guilty, or I'm a bad business owner, or I'm lazy, or I would have turned it into some sort of a self-judgment if I started something and then had to reprioritize. And I really feel like it's becoming more clear. If one of the lessons I feel like I'm learning this year that is supporting my mental health is you maybe you can do it all, but not all simultaneously, not all at once, and trying to live that, which means sometimes I have to press pause on things, or there's certain seasons of life where I can't focus on everything I would want to focus on. And that's okay, because that has been another big contributor to my chronic overwhelm, is feeling like if I've said I was going to do something, or if I've committed to something, or I wanted to do something, and then I stop, I'm a failure, or I'm lazy, or I'm behind, or I'm underwater. And instead just recognizing you can intentionally put things on pause in your life and say, I choose to do this in this part of life, and I will choose to pick that back up or not as needed. It doesn't mean it's easy for me. I had to reach out. If I'm going to tie two together here, another one is reach out to my people when I'm feeling stuck on something. And I recently had to do that about pressing pause on one of the things, one of the many, many plates that I'm trying to juggle right now. And sometimes you get stuck in your own head, and having people you can go to and say, I don't know what to do about this. I'm stuck. I don't have an answer. And have, depending on, it helps if you have coach friends, but it just helps if you have, wise, good listening friends in general. Leaning on my people when I need to, when I'm stuck on something and not able to process it fully in my own head.
That's related to one of mine. I only have two more. I don't. So maybe rein yourself in, because we don't have that much time here. I don't know how long your list is, but I just don't think I think if your list is that long, it's not, no one's list needs to be that long, is my point.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be simple. So anyway, that's related to one of my bullets, which is, as an external processor, I do a lot more external processing in the last year or two than I did previously. Or at least I did a lot with you, but now I do a lot more with other people too. So Voxer is the best app because it's like a walkie-talkie app where you send voice notes back and forth. And I am Voxing with I probably have 5 or 6 different Voxer conversations going on at any given time, which would overwhelm Kristen to no end. But it doesn't overwhelm me. And I love it because people will just be like, hey, I'm checking in with you. Cause I have other more external processy friends. You're not one of the external processors. I know more external processors than not in terms of my friends. You're not one of them.
I'm definitely an internal processor, but that's why when I really get stuck in my head, that's when I really don't know what to do. So if I have to become an external processor sometimes when something gets a little too big for my own brain.
So I love it because it gives me an opportunity to externally process just how I'm feeling with some accountability, because I can share something with a friend and hear myself. I can go back and listen to what I just said. So that's crucial. But then I also can get it out. And I think once it's out, it feels less real, or it feels less scary, or it feels more clear because it's not just bouncing around in my own head. And then I'm also getting feedback from someone whose feedback I value or trust. So that is really helpful for me as an external processor, is to have people that I can share that with, but also a medium that's easy to go back and forth and just process the daily stuff. Cause it's not just like processing deep shit. It's like talking shit about a Netflix show back and forth. which is also a form of fun external processing. So yeah, I love that.
All right. Well, I'm realizing I had multiple things here, but I'm actually realizing they're all under one category. My
Yeah.
remaining list
That's what my last bullet is too.
My remaining list is take breaks. Now, that looks like a few different things. It looks like I don't work on weekends. And I couldn't always say that in the past. I'm not going to say never, ever, ever, but I really try to make weekends sacred apart from work time because there's so much that I'm doing in my work week that if I don't set a clear boundary around that, it would feel like it was never ending, just nonstop, and I would burn out very fast. And this is a harder one to do when you run your own business and everything you work on is virtual. It's so easy to just pop up your computer and answer a few emails or work on something on a Saturday or Sunday when you've got some downtime. And I've been trying very hard not to do that because it's not good for my mental health, I have found. Breaks also means I try to get outside every day, even if it's good to have dogs because they can force you to do that. But otherwise, I know I could just sit my butt in a chair all day and look at, be on Zoom meetings or work on stuff. And that is not good for me. By the end, I feel so frazzled. I need outside time every day. I need mental breaks, so I always have a fiction audiobook that is not personal development related. It is not action. It is just a break from my normal day-to-day to-do list and life. Most of this year has been J.K. Rowling related, so it was I listened to the entire Cormoran Strike series, and now I am re-listening to the Harry Potter series for I can't even tell you like the umpteenth time, and it's so wonderful to be like doing work stuff all day and thinking about what do I need to do next and who do I need to get back to, and then to pause and just hear about Harry's life for a little while. It is so good for my mental health. So I take physical breaks, mental breaks, even just little breathing breaks. I just re-downloaded a couple weeks ago the Headspace app, and I use the 5 breath option. It's like 30 seconds long. I use it like a couple times a day. Just 5 deep breaths. All of this helps me.
So my last bullet is that, so I guess before I say that, of all the things that you've heard us talk about on this podcast, Kristen and I really do try to walk our talk around the whole practicing being in feminine energy thing.
Yeah.
That's critical. Like, I don't put anything above how I feel physically. Like, I really have to respond to that email, but I also want to take a walk. Nope, I'm taking a walk. Like, it's almost impossible to get me to prioritize work over space and tending to how I feel, like mentally, physically, emotionally. Because I know how important that is. So our side chat about how you actually do feminine energy from back in June, we really walk those steps that we outlined in that episode, we really walk that talk, or at least I try to all the time. It's a way of life. And related to that, the side chat we did last month, why you don't actually need motivation, or whatever it was called, why you don't need motivation, I think. We ended up talking about parenting yourself and being a good parent to yourself. That is my last bullet, is that is what I strive to be. And that is what is good for my mental health, is that I have a bedtime. Like, I try to have my lights out at 10:30. I'm not letting myself go to bed at 9 one night and then I stay up till 1 a.m. the next night. Like, I have a very consistent routine, which, like, if you're being a good parent to yourself, you would probably have a good routine set with your kid. I have gotten into the habit of trying to take walks in the morning before a 9 a.m. call, like at like 8 or 8:30 at the latest. I'll go take a walk. And I could be sitting at my email, responding to emails before my day begins. And I'm like, no, I will feel better if I start my day with a walk without the dog, because she'll just slow me down. That's in addition to the dog walk I then take later in the morning. And like that to me is being a good parent to myself, is asking myself to prioritize that, which is also a way of practicing feminine energy and getting into ease and flow and body over business first and foremost. So, and of course, hydrating myself and feeding myself good food. All of these things are good for my mental health, but they're also good for my physical, emotional health too.
Which are all intertwined.
Everything's so deeply intertwined. So anyway, being a good parent to yourself is incredibly important for maintaining and sustaining mental health. So
Absolutely.
I'm a big, big, big practicer of that. Do I meditate? Rarely. I wish I did. Do I do breath work? Rarely. I wish I did more of it. Like, there are things that I know that you should be doing, and I'm not doing them the way that I should be, but I am doing the things that are critical to me. And you know what? I just had the most chaotic week. And like, I realized today as I was like in the bathroom, just kind of like looking at the chaos around me, I was like, I don't feel that different than I did 2 days ago before this happened. And I'm like, oh yeah, because like your set point is basically the same no matter what's happening. And it's your job to tend to your set point. Like that's your job.
And to figure out what your set point is. And I was just talking to a client earlier today, like 2 hours ago, about this very thing, which is, yes, all of the articles out there will say you have to meditate every day and you have to exercise this particular way every single day and get your heart rate up to blah, blah, blah in order. You have to come up with your own definition. And I'm not going to say I wouldn't feel calmer if I meditated more. I'm trying, but I don't do it all the time. But I know what I really need. And I give myself what I really need because I figured that out. I figured out what is my healthy set point. And there's always things you could add. Sure, of course. But don't feel like there's a right or wrong way to take good care of yourself. Nobody can tell you what that is. You have to define for yourself what being a good steward of your own mental health is, or being a good parent to yourself is. And even if it's not the traditional meditate and exercise and drink 1 billion glasses of water every single day.
I switch it up. I have lots of different beverages every day. All right. That's that. I hope that you enjoyed this little peek behind the curtain in terms of how we actually live our life.
I hope it's inspiring you to figure out what that looks like for you. Because it's fun to hear someone else's version of what works for them. And maybe some of the ideas that we shared are going to be what's good for you. But more than that is I want you to just dig in to what do I most need to keep me healthy, happy, sane on a daily basis.
Okay. Kristen has a thing at 4:30, so we gotta go.
Yeah.
But we will talk to some of you about coaching for sure. Link in show notes. Love to hear your thoughts about this episode. If you want to share what works for you in like maintaining your mental health, leave a comment.
Yeah,
there's
please,
a link in the show notes. You can link over to our site and comment. And we will see you on Wednesday with chapter 6 of Forever Alone. Penultimate. I saw you searching for your word. Penultimate episode of Forever Alone. You're going to get a real rant in this episode. Like Rachel fucking rants in this episode.
We know Rachel's good at that. So
good. I think some of you are going to be up by the end of it, be like, fuck yeah. At least I really hope so. So we will see you then.
All right. Bye.